New York, at the turn of the century, was a bustling metropolis of commerce, fashion, and Gothic skyscrapers. Mammoth steamboats were disgorging immigrants from all over the world into this melting pot of the American dream. It was the Big Apple. In this city resided dignified Marjorie Irene Hayes and Walter Randolph Carrington, who had migrated from Barbados, a picturesque island in the West Indies that is a must-see for tourists and lovers of virgin ecosystems. On July 24, 1930, the couple gave birth to a son, Walter Charles Carrington. Little did they know that their handsome boy would traverse continents, dine with kings and presidents, and become an instrument in changing the destiny of millions of people in America and Africa, the motherland. Elementary education was at John Hancock and Hales Elementary Schools. He then moved on to the predominantly white Parlin High School.
The most segregated hour in America was Sunday morning. That is, the churches were segregated by custom. And so instead of going to church in Everett, I would have to go to church in a neighboring town where there was a black church. And that is where I went to church, and where I really developed a sense of my identity.
In a life that was later filled with many pioneering phenomena, Carrington was in a group of 4 black students who were first admitted into Harvard University, the most prestigious citadel of learning in the world. The university forced him and his other colleagues, James Harkless, William Simmons, and Herbert Hughes, to room together. This segregation policy prompted the 4 men to protest Harvard's racial policy. And this was Carrington's baptism into activism and his lifelong struggle for human rights.
When I arrived at Harvard, our class at Harvard had about 1,500 freshmen coming in, the largest class they'd ever had, because they had expected that there wouldn't be so many because of the military draft that was in, and a lot of people would be taken in the draft, and it turned out they weren't. But there were only 4 blacks among the 1,500 in the class. And I remember arriving there and meeting my roommate, and he was black, and I was black, and then there were 2 other blacks, and they roomed them together. It was like Noah's Ark. They roomed us 2 by 2. And so we thought that that was discriminatory, and that kind of practice had to change.
Of note, Carrington became president of the Liberal Union, Harvard's largest political organization, and more importantly, he became the founding president of the Harvard chapter of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. At this period, American society was precipitated on the principles of racism, segregation, and mentality of the slavery era. The NAACP became a vehicle of the emancipation for the millions of blacks who were living in subhuman status. In 1952, in the thick of this movement, Carrington became the first student to be elected onto the national board of the NAACP. Specifically, he contributed to the deliberation on the historic school desegregation cases, which NAACP filed with the United States Supreme Court. Carrington's activism propelled him like a magnet into friendship with 2 American legends, Malcolm X. And as Alpha Phi Alpha, Big Brother met Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King came to Boston to do his graduate work in divinity at the same time when I was in the law school. And so I got to know him. I mean, you know, there were just so few blacks in college and university in that Boston area, and we we all knew each other, and so I got to know Martin quite well, and there is a black fraternity that many black students join. They're called Alpha Phi Alpha. And Martin, who had gone to an all-black university in the South, Morehouse, for some reason, never joined while he was an undergraduate. When he came to Boston, he was interested now in joining a fraternity and decided to join Alpha Phi Alpha. Well, by that time, I was already a member, so he was coming in to the graduate. We had a graduate chapter in Boston, which represented sort of all the schools, because there weren't enough blacks in any one of the schools to have had a chapter. So we had this big chapter in Boston, and so Martin came in as a pledgee, and I became his big brother during that time. And of course, we had rituals that every pledgee had to go through, and one of them was what we called crossing the burning sands, which meant they would get paddled. And I still have my paddle, in fact, with his name on it, to Big Brother Walter Carrington, in which I paddled him across the burning sand. Now, Martin may have believed at that time in nonviolence, but some of his big brothers didn't. so we kind of paddled him across the burning sands, and he became a member of Alpha Phi Alpha and my fraternity brother.
Through NAACP activism, Carrington also met Clarence Mitchell and Thurgood Marshall, who later became the first African-American jurist on the U.S. Supreme Court. One of his famous quotes, Walter was enrolled in the United States Army 1955 to 1957, and after his honorable discharge, he enrolled in the Harvard Law School, earning his JD degree in 1958. The Harvard Law School is a breeding ground for eminent American leaders, including President Barack Obama. At the age of 27, Carrington was appointed Commissioner of the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, the youngest commissioner in the history of Massachusetts by Governor John Volpe. Notably, he organized for John F. Kennedy in 1960. Carrington's link with Africa became tenuous when he joined the Peace Corps, an American institution devoted to humanitarian service worldwide, 1961 to 1971, eventually becoming the Peace Corps Director for Africa. It was a wonderful opportunity to establish a direct rapport with many African leaders for the progress of Africa. He served from 1961 to 1971 in Sierra Leone, Tunisia, and Senegal. What follows is a life devoted to academia, law practice, and Afrocentrist vocations.
Oh, nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory